Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. And it's from Canto 2, Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 5, Cause of All Causes, and text 19 this morning. So Canto 2, Chapter 5, Text 19. We're fortunate this morning to have Her Grace Vrindavanesvari Radical Mataji from ISKCON, Philadelphia, to give a class. Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhus, good morning. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Bharatari Yashodanandana Brajajana Rangana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jayarada Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravaradari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jayarada Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravaradari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Asatari Sata His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Asatari Sata His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai.
Jai.
Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai.
Jai.
Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shiva Sati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakundari Radhakund Gira Govardhan Ki Jai.
Jai.
Mayapurdam Ki Jai.
Jai.
Muna Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Ganga Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Tulsi Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai.
Jai.
ISKCON Harrisburg Ki Jai.
Jai.
Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hari Hari Bo.
All glories the assembled devotees. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
All glories the assembled devotees.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
All glories the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Hare Hare Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashitate Shatarane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayana Namaskritha Naram Chaiva Narottama Devam Sarasvatim Vyasyam Jatodayam Madhyayat Nastya Prayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloki Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So, good morning, everyone. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 2, chapter 5, verse 19 in the second canto. So I'll read it 3 times and then we can repeat together. Karya karana kartrive dravya yagna kriyashraya badnati nityada muktam mayanam purusham gunam karya karana kartrive dravya yagya kriyashraya badnati nityada muktam mayanam purusham gunam Karya karana kartripe dravya yagya kriyashraya badnati nitya muktam mayanam purusham guna. Anyone else like to try?
Karya karana katridve dravya jnana kriyashraya padnanti nityada muktam mayinam purusham guna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
कार्यकारणकर्तृत्वे द्रव्यज्ञान क्रियाश्रयः पन्तन्ति नित्यता मुक्तं मायिनं पुरुषं गुणः. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else like to try?
Ariya karana katrivite dravya nana kriyashraya bananti nityada muktam mainam purusham guna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Great. Anyone else? Okay. We'll dive into word for word. Karya, effect. Karana, cause. Kartrive, inactivities. Dravya, material. Gyan, knowledge. Kriya, ashraya, manifested by such symptoms. Badnanti, conditions. Nityada, eternally. Muktam, transcendental. Mayanam, affected by material energy. Purusham, the living entity. Guna, the material modes. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Right.
These 3 modes of material nature, being further manifested as matter, knowledge, and activities, put the eternally transcendental living entity under conditions of cause and effect, and make him responsible for such activities. Purport. Because they are between the internal and external potencies, the eternally transcendental living entities are called the marginal potency of the Lord. Factually, the living entities are not meant to be so conditioned by material energy, but due to their being affected by the false sense of lording it over the material energy, they come under the influence of such potency and thus become conditioned by the 3 modes of material nature. This external energy of the Lord covers up the pure knowledge of the living entities eternally existing with him, but the covering is so constant that it appears that the conditioned soul is eternally ignorant. Such is the wonderful action of Maya, or eternal energy, manifested as if materially produced. By the covering power of the material energy, the material scientist cannot look beyond the material causes, but factually behind the material manifestations, there are Adibhuta, Adiyatma, and Adideva actions, which are the conditioned soul in the mode of ignorance, which the conditioned soul in the mode of ignorance cannot see. The Adibhuta manifestation entails repetitions of birth and death with the old age and diseases. The Adiyatma manifestation conditions the spirit soul, and the Adideva manifestation is the controlling system. These are the material manifestations of cause and effect and the sense of responsibility of the conditioned actors. They are, after all, manifestations of the conditioned state, and the human being's freedom from such a conditioned state is the highest perfectional attainment. Om Gyana Timarantasya Kyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmalatam Yena Tashme Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Menobistam Stapitom Yena Bhutale Shwayam Rupakada Mayam Dadati Svadpatantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Chara Swaminati Namane Snigta Chaita Supanada Vagmanam Trasaplita Prabhupada Gata Prananam Bhakti Charapadam. So I'll read this translation again. These 3 modes of material nature, being further manifested as matter, knowledge, and activities, put the eternally transcendental living entity under conditions of cause and effect and make him responsible for such activities. So this chapter is going into the cause of all causes. So it's really helping us to understand the material energies, the source of creation, the source of God, the emanations of God, and how Krishna and it comes into this material energy and controls and lords over situations versus the material energy, the conditioned soul. So one of the concepts that came up in the purport, which we've all probably become pretty well versed in, and it definitely have experienced on a daily basis, is the modes of material nature. And the Bhagavad Gita takes many attempts to try and explain to us the modes of material nature. So it must be a pretty important concept if it's brought up multiple times in the Bhagavad Gita. And the important thing about the modes is to remember that they are part of the Lord's external energies. So in this purport, Prabhupada describes the fact of us being the marginal energies of the Lord. And why are we the marginal energies? Well, because we are between the internal and external potencies, and the internal potencies are the is the spiritual energies of the Lord, and we have some of that through our Paramatma, right? So we have that in us. Those spiritual energies are a spark within us. We as living entities have the spark of our own soul as well, which is spiritual. However, because we are in the material energies and we're interacting with the material world, we are also part of those external potencies. So this is where it's mixed. It becomes mixed. So we are in the marginal potencies. We're somewhere in between, right? And it depends on where we are in our spiritual life on that spectrum of marginal. But the important thing to consider is that as long as we're in these material energies, we are going to be coming in contact with the modes of material nature. That is the laws, right? It's just like the laws of gravity. As long as we are on this earth, we are subject to the laws of gravity. I pick up this pen, it drops, right? So we know that that's a law, it's confirmed, it's there. And so the modes of material nature act in such a way as well that we are governed by these modes, they're laws. They're in effect, they're influencing us. The same as Prabhupada pointed out, the Adibhuta, Adiyatma, and Adideva actions. So I'll give a review of the modes a little bit, even though I think we're all pretty well versed in them at this point, but I think it's important to remember how the modes manifest and how Krishna is related to the modes as well. And one of the things that is brought up in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna points out, that knowing that all states of being, be they goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. So this is Krishna speaking. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they are on the contrary within me. And so this is an interesting concept, right? So we think of Krishna as very aloof from all of these activities and all of these things. Krishna has created all of this. Krishna has created Maya. Krishna has created all of these material energies for us to experience and enjoy. Why did we end up here in these material energies? Because we wanted to enjoy separate from the Lord. And this is in this concept of enjoying separately from the divine, from God, is a concept that comes up in many different religions. We see it also in Christianity, that the fallen angels, they wanted to have their own will. They wanted to do things independent of God, and so they came down into the material energies, down to earth. And so we see the same thing here in this tradition of Vaishnavism and of Bhakti. And this understanding through the Vedas, that we can see that we as spirit souls said, hey, Krishna, this is all great, but I want to be in charge. And how often do we see this in even just in daily life? We have the boss, we have the president, and then someone's like, no, but I don't like what you're doing. I don't like the way it affects me. I want to be in control. I want to be in charge. And this is where things get kind of messy in the material energies, is because when we are lording it over, we are trying to be God, we are trying to be in charge. This is where things can get kind of convoluted. And we can see the manifestations even materially within the material experiences, that when someone comes in and they want to be in charge, they want to be the controller, and someone else is already the controller, the current controller either says, no, absolutely not, you're not in control, get back down to your designated position, or they get overthrown. And we just recently saw this in the news. So this is, and Syria was, their government was recently overthrown last week, and it's a big deal. Because the militants did not like the way the ruler was leading the country. So we see these things all of the time in material energies of there's a ruler, there's people, someone doesn't like it, they overthrow them. Now, how do the modes of material nature play into all of that? Well, it's about our mood. It's about our activities. Excuse me. So how we are going about our activities in these material energies is really dictating the influences that are overtaking us in any given moment. The modes of material nature are there, and there's a great image in the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, if you look at one of the images inside the Gita, you'll see the one of the puppeteers. They have the strings. It's the three modes of material nature. It's the three puppeteers controlling the living entity. And that's really what it can feel like. It can feel like we have these things just tugging on us all of the time. The modes of material nature are very, very difficult to overcome. They're very difficult to overcome. And it's even said in Bhagavad Gita how difficult and how bewildering the modes of material nature are. Bhagavad Gita 3:29, it says, bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. So this is, like I said, this is not a new thing. The modes of material nature are very confounding. They are very difficult to overcome. And so here we see that, when we're trying to navigate the world, and we also have the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance in there, we are always trying to work toward doing our activities in the mode of goodness. Okay, that's ideally our goal. Okay. Ideally, if we are acting in the mode of goodness, then we are at least doing things for the betterment for others and the betterment for society, and hopefully the betterment for ourselves, and things that will support our spiritual life. That being said, the mode of passion enters in, right? We might become very angered by something and act out in that anger. We might become very driven to do something, very materially focused. And that's going to bring us that mode of passion, that passion-driven activity of just very driven, very focused. And I'm going to make that, that $1 million. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. That is very much in the mode of passion. And we can see all of these things. The mode of ignorance is the mode of ignorance is thinking, oh, I just can't be bothered. And I hate everybody. And, I just don't want to do anything. I don't want to make any efforts in any kind of activity, spiritual, material, whatever it is. I'm going to drink myself into a stupor, and that's where I'm going to exist. And so those are kind of, very specific examples of the modes of material nature. But oftentimes we're swimming in a mix of those energies throughout the day. And those mixed energies can actually come into how we practice our spiritual life too. So even though we might be practicing spiritual life, the modes of material energy, because we are likely not free from them yet, it's very difficult to overcome. To become a pure devotee is very, very difficult. It says so in Nectar of Devotion. So Srila Rupa Goswami says that pure devotional service is rarely achieved. So not to discourage anyone, but we know that pure devotional service is very, very difficult to get to that state. But pure devotional service does bring immediate relief from all kinds of material distress. And this is another, one of the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service is that we have relief from the material distresses. We have relief from the modes of material nature. And this is where one, if they transcend the modes, if they're able to transcend the modes of material nature, then they will finally have that spiritual understanding. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Madhya Lila, chapter 17, there's a verse that says, the holy name of Krishna, his bodies and his pastimes cannot be understood by the blunt material senses. They are manifested independently. And Prabhupada says, as long as the living entity is conditioned by the 3 modes of material nature, the objects of his material senses, material form, taste, smell, sound, and touch, will not help him understand spiritual knowledge and bliss. So this is really important to understand that the modes of material nature, as long as we are getting pulled around by these modes of material nature, and especially if we're hanging out in the mode of passion and ignorance, but even the mode of goodness can limit us. Even the mode of goodness, it will limit our ability. We will not be supported in our goals to understand spiritual knowledge and bliss. And Prabhupada continues that rather, these are revealed to the pure devotee. One's material name, form, and quality are certainly different from one another. In the material world, there is no conception of absolute. However, when we come to Krishna consciousness, we find there is no material difference between Krishna's body and his name. So this goes on to kind of explain Krishna. But the point here is that the modes of material nature are not, they're impediments. They're limitations to our deepest, fullest spiritual understanding. But what the heck, right? How are we going to get away from this then? We are in the material energy. So this is quite a conundrum that we're placed in here. It's quite the predicament as the living entity. So for those of us who have a desire to progress in Krishna consciousness, to progress in our spiritual activities, somehow we have to figure out how to transcend the modes of material nature somehow. Okay. But then you toss in suffering that wasn't outside of, right? So we also have these suffering activities. So we have Adi Bhuta, Adi Atmika, Adi Deva, right? So Adi Atmika, suffering from our own minds. Right? We can't even get away from our own thoughts. And I know I've done it to myself a million times over. I even said to my husband the other day, when I was proven utterly wrong in a situation, but until I had the full understanding of the situation, I thought there was a situation that caused my brain to spin out, right? How many of you have been in that situation where you have a small piece of information and your brain creates a story around it, and suddenly you've figured out the whole situation based on one little shred of evidence, and now you think you know the whole situation, and your brain's now creating decisions and outcomes and all of these things and anxieties around this tiny little breadcrumb. And then a few days later, a week later, whatever that is, you gather more information and you come to discover that that breadcrumb was completely, only a tiny, tiny corner of the bigger picture, which wasn't what you thought it was at all. So, and then you're maybe we're eating crow, as the saying goes, right? We're just realizing, oops, I had that way wrong. Sorry. And so this is the sufferings of our own mind, much to say the sufferings that we encounter from other things. So the Adi, the Adi Buddha, Adi Bhotika sufferings are from other living entities. It could be anything, right? Any other living entity that causes us suffering. Someone, cut us off in traffic, or someone said something mean to us or hurt us in some way. These are things that are often beyond our control. Sometimes We might, there might be karmic reactions occurring there, but oftentimes these things are just coming at us because we're in this material world with other living entities. So, and then you tack on the Adidaivika sufferings, which are things caused by the demigods, like earthquake, flood, famine. We've just, we've 4 years outside, well, less than 4 years, actually, like 2 actual years, 2.5 years out of the pandemic. Whoa, right? So there's flooding, there's wildfires, there's droughts. We were on a burn ban here in my area. It was because it was so dry here for almost 2 months that, which is really, bad for plants, bad for end of season growing, for food. So these are the miseries brought on. They're completely outside. I have nothing to do with my own mind and my own activities. These are things outside of our abilities to control. So here we are in these modes and in these sufferings. We're trying to move forward in our spiritual lives. We're trying to sustain ourselves and survive in the material energies, and yet we're coming face to face with all of these difficulties. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. So what is the remedy? Well, the remedy is surrender, right? The remedy is through all of these sufferings, all of these difficulties, the best thing that we can do is to surrender to the Lord. How do we do that? We surrender to the Lord through our daily activities. But the thing about surrender that's, I think, really difficult is that we have to also surrender our own minds to the Lord. We have to surrender because our minds are the most difficult. Arjuna says controlling the mind is like trying to control the wind. That's not possible. So Arjuna is basically saying it's impossible for me to even try and make an attempt to control my mind. It's too difficult. It's too difficult. And what is Krishna's response? Well, you don't have to control your mind. You don't have to go through these austerities and difficulties to come to me. Krishna's just saying, ultimately, all that you need to do is increase your devotional activity. Do activity in the service of me. Do activity for me, and through thinking of me. This, think of me, become my devotee. Surely you will come to me. That is the essence of the activities that we do. We think of Krishna. So when our mind is disturbed by difficulties in life, when our mind is completely spun out, like mine was earlier this week, and I came out of, and it was, I will admit, I'll be the first to admit that in that moment of feeling so sure that little breadcrumb that I had was the whole story that my mind had concocted, and feeling so certain of that, I was prepared to take actions in that direction. And when thankfully I waited and I kind of sat on it, I was like, okay, I need to get more information here. I need to see what else is going on. And I was proven wrong. I was thankful that I was like, okay, but I also, we can waste a lot of mental energy. And that's the thing that these things can do. The modes of material nature and the 3 sufferings, these different things can really gobble up a lot of our energy, which could be used for better activities. And then this is, telling myself this too, right? So these, all of these things, these modes of material nature that, when we get in that mode of thinking something that's wrong, or getting angry, those are the mode of ignorance, right? We're in darkness then, and we're being pulled around. And sometimes it might even feel like we're getting tugged around a little bit. If you ever have a situation in life where your reaction is just so instantaneous, it's so, so strong and so instantaneous. Where is that coming from? Well, it's from part of our conditioning. So these how we are conditioned, our material energies are and out of the conditioning that we have coming into this life, it's these are the coverings. Because in Prabhupada says this here in the purport, this external energy of the Lord covers up the pure knowledge of the living entities eternally existing within him. But the covering is so constant that it appears that the conditioned soul is eternally ignorant. Such is the wonderful action of Maya, or external energy, manifested as if materially produced. By the covering power of the material energy, the material scientist cannot look beyond the material causes, but factually behind the material manifestation. There, and then it goes into the different modes or the different types of suffering. So Prabhupada says this in the Bhagavad Gita, the dust on the mirror, the smoke over the fire, these are coverings. The embryo covered in. All of these things are coverings. But there's something deeper behind it. So what we need to do is we are so covered over. We're so covered over by the material energies. Even though we're here, we're trying. We're like, okay, I know I'm covered. I know I want to be, moving toward Krishna. I want to do devotional service. I want to be doing pure devotional service. I aspire to that. Yet I'm so covered over. I'm so engrossed in the material energies. And all that we can do is just continue to surrender ourselves to Krishna, because there is Krishna's causeless mercy. When we have the desire, when we have the sincerity, the true inner sincerity to move past these things, Krishna he could give us a little bit of his love. He can give us a little bit of his mercy and give us a taste of something, give us a taste of something beyond these material energies. Give us a taste and help us come out of that ignorance, even just for a moment, to come out of the ignorance and really gain a better understanding of what it means to be in those spiritual energies, what it means to really experience all of Krishna's energies. So in the Nectar of Devotion, and if you haven't really delved into the Nectar of Devotion, I encourage you to at least get through the first chapter and really read it completely. It's there's some really good clarity on some of these topics, and one of the sections is called Relief from Material Distress, and I think this section is really really important, because we're all suffering. Yes, we are all enjoying too. So that's the thing. If we're enjoying in the material energies, then we're also going to be suffering in the material energies. The two go hand in hand, like night and day, right? You can't enjoy in the material world without also suffering in the material world. So this is part of the problem that we encounter as material entities. So what is the remedy? Well, in Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami talks about some of the ways to get out of that. And I'll just read a couple of paragraphs. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that one should surrender unto him, giving up all other engagements. The Lord also gives his word that he will protect surrendered souls from the reactions of all sinful activities. Srila Rupa Goswami says that the distresses from sinful activities are due both to the sins themselves and to sins committed in our past lives. So this is an important thing to consider, is that how these things come to us, these sufferings, but also the modes of material nature and how we are engaging with them, have a lot to do with what we do here, but also in past lives. So he's going to go into a little bit of understanding of the sinful activities and the different types. Generally, one commits sinful activities due to ignorance, but ignorance is no excuse for evading the reaction, sinful activities. Sinful activities are of two kinds, those that are mature and those that are not mature. The sinful activities for which we are suffering at the present moment are called mature. The many sinful activities stored within us for which we have not yet suffered are considered immature. So we have some things stored up in us that we're still working through. For example, a man who may have committed criminal acts but not yet been arrested for them. Now, as soon as he is detected, arrest is awaiting him. Similarly, for some of our sinful activities, we are awaiting distresses in the future, and for others which are mature, we are suffering at the present moment. In this way, there is a chain of sinful activities and their concomitant distresses, and the conditioned soul is suffering life after life due to these sins. He is suffering the present life, the results of sinful activities from his past life, and he is meanwhile creating further sufferings for his future life. Mature sinful activities are exhibited if one is suffering from some chronic disease, if one is suffering from legal implications, if one is born in a low and degraded family, or one is uneducated or very ugly. So these are some things that, you know, it's not easy to escape, but luckily, the more that we put ourselves into the practice of Krishna consciousness, the more that we hand ourselves over to the Lord can actually lessen. And that's the beautiful thing of Krishna's causeless mercy, is that Krishna can actually reduce the impact of our suffering due to activities that we perform, or maybe not just because he wants to, but Krishna has the ability to reduce the impact. This is the karmic reactions, right? Essentially what we're talking about is karma. You know, we do activities, there is a reaction. This sin is activities, and the karma is in the karmic reactions. The karma is what we accumulate, and the karmic reactions is essentially the suffering. Or sometimes it's the good things too, right? Because there could be good karma, right? But it's the sufferings that we're experiencing in the present moment. So it's really important to remember when we're going through a difficult time and we are having a hard time working ourselves through it, we have to be present with that. We have to be present with that difficulty, be present with whatever we are going through, and try and keep ourselves in the mode of goodness while we are going through it as best as we can. But also, we have to trust that this is A, temporary because we're in the material world. B, it's due to some past activities that we're receiving the reactions for. And C, if we just continue to keep Krishna in the forefront of our lives, that we'll get through it. So it's may in the moment seem difficult, but the more that we can get ourselves to the point of acting in the world through the mode of goodness, through our activities. And this is where association and our activities and getting rid of our anarthas, are those weeds that can cause blocks to our spiritual life. The more that we continue to work on those things, the more that we're continuing to bring ourselves up in our consciousness. Because it's really our consciousness that is going to help pave the pathway forward in our spiritual life. If we are in a very low state of consciousness, if we're in a depressed state, if we're in an angry state or a state of anxiety, material anxiety all of the time, this is going to be a limiting factor for us. This is very much, this is when we have the mind, right? The Adi Atmika is causing us tremendous suffering. Adi Atmika is causing us so much suffering at this time. So we have to, over time, we have to try and shift the mind to a space of consciousness that is going to uplift us. And so what Krishna was telling Arjuna, because the mind is so difficult to control, more difficult than the wind, what Krishna is telling Arjuna to do is to think of me, do activities, devotional activities for me, serve me, become my devotee. And so then the mind is shifted in our activities. The mind is of course, we're going to have to get through our material activities and get through our day, and we might have a difficult situation at work that comes up, or at home, or with our health. But the more that we can, in the moment, we're gonna probably have one of those snap reactions, right? But the sooner we can draw it in and be like, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Just go to a chanting. We can just shift gears to chanting. We can shift gears to gratitude. Krishna, thank you. You know, this is a difficult situation for me, but so many other situations are so wonderful, and thank you. I know you're gonna help me through this in some way. Thank you. And so it's a daily practice, and it's something, and I've used this analogy in the past, but if we're going to prepare for any sort of athletic feat, let's say maybe it's running a marathon or a triathlon, maybe it's some other training that we're doing. If we are going to do that, we have to train toward that. And we might get injuries along the way. We might have setbacks. Some days we have poor energy, but we have to just keep training. And so the material world is really a training ground for us to try and work through these things so that we can hopefully, you know, before we leave this earth, before we leave our bodies, that hopefully we've been training and training and training and training and training. The marathon is really what happens when we die. That's what we're training for, because that's when that's when the final decisions are made. We want to make sure that when we leave our bodies, that we are moving forward, moving toward Krishna, hopefully going back to Godhead, but maybe at least moving forward in our spiritual life and not backward. You know, we don't want to end up like Indra in the body of a hog. You know, we don't want to end up going backwards in our material lives. So we want to make sure that as we're training and we're going through each of these days and weeks and months and years, that we're preparing for the long haul, which is really, we're preparing to die. And it sounds very grim, and no one wants to think about it, but it is, in actuality, we are setting our life up every single day. The more that we dedicate ourselves to the Lord, the more that we dedicate ourselves to devotional service, our suffering will reduce. That doesn't mean that material energies aren't going to knock us around. It doesn't mean that there isn't going to be a storm or someone that says, you know, that hurts us in some way. And doesn't mean that our mind might not pop in somewhere and cause a disturbance. What it means is that how we handle it, if we handle it in the Krishna conscious way, our suffering from those activities will dramatically reduce. And that's really what we can hope for, is that we can, as much as possible, try and reduce our suffering through these spiritual activities, through the understanding that serving the Lord, serving, doing daily sadhana and our activities, the more that we do that, the more that we are going to reduce our suffering and hopefully come to really have a deep, deep desire to serve the Lord, to go back home and be with the Lord. So I'm going to open it up for discussion here. Thank you for the opportunity. Please correct me, offer any feedback, suggestions, and certainly your own insights as well. So.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much for a very, very insightful lecture on the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and how they play into our lives. And you talked about the fact that we're sitting in a marginal energy, choice of either internal or the external energy. We have that choice. And then you talked about difficulties also. Devotees, this is the time to unmute yourself and share what comes to mind from this lecture, or any other things that you want to bring up for discussion. And some of the takeaways also. If you can share your appreciation for it, it would be very nice. Hare Krishna. So you can unmute yourself. While the Buddhists are thinking, I have one question that was asked of me sometime I was preaching in Baltimore, the Baltimore Temple. And it's actually a situation that many devotees face in doing devotion service. So this person was asking me, the devotee was asking me that I've been trying to serve Krishna, for a number of years, and I'm really, really sincere about wanting to serve Krishna as nicely as possible. But I seem to be running into difficulties, challenges, and all of that. But and he said, I don't understand. I don't understand it. If I'm helping through devotional service, why doesn't Krishna make it easier for me to do it rather than put all of these challenges in the way? And then the boy started laughing about it. But actually, he had a point. And I
Super
wonder,
great question.
yeah, what your thoughts on it would be for a situation like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, I think we have to refer back to Shastra. I think that first and foremost, we can see that we have a sincere desire, but we also have, as I talked about today, we have this karmic activity, these past sinful activities that are playing out. So even though we're doing service in the temple and we're trying to serve the deities, we still are trying to work through all of these other things from the past. And so hopefully this service that we're doing is lessening the effect, right? So the suffering and the difficulties that we are encountering could be much worse. And that's all often like in January, I broke my ankle and I kept thinking, it could have been worse, right? I could have, that day I could have been in a horrible car wreck, but Krishna only just broke my ankle. So I've worked off some karma. I've gotten it, I've moved through that. And so the other thing about, doing service is that while we are doing service in the temple and doing devotional service, it's not pure. And because we, in our consciousness, most are, I think, as I said with it's in Srila Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Devotion said that pure devotional service is very rare. So most of us are doing devotional service in a mixed capacity, meaning that we're doing the service, but our minds are not fully engaged. Our minds are wandering. We have mixed reasons for doing the service. We are, still in these material energies. We're still material, in the material body. So we're going to probably run into situations where we're doing service maybe to get, some acknowledgement. Maybe we're doing the service because it's something we really enjoy personally. And so, but it's not about our personal enjoyment. It's a plus if we like what we're doing, but it's not about our personal enjoyment. And so this is where the devotional service is mixed. But like I said, Krishna's giving us benefits all in different places, but we don't always see it if we're not looking for it. So Krishna's giving us boons every day if we look for it, if we feel it, if we have the gratitude for everything that we do have. And so part of that is also coming from a space of gratitude to say, Krishna, I know I'm in these material energies, which means that things are naturally inherently going to be difficult here. That's just the nature of the material energies, is that it's difficult. And so just because I'm doing service doesn't mean that, as I mentioned earlier today, just because you're doing these things doesn't mean that the Adideva, Adiatmika, Adibodhika are going to go away, right? Those are still there. There's still going to be people that are going to hurt us. There's still going to be storms and all these things, because we're in the material world. So we have to remember that just because we're doing devotional service, all of these other things aren't going to just suddenly disappear, and we're going to be in this utopia, living out this like la 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 la, everything's wonderful, because a little bit of stress helps us grow. And so if we don't have those stressors in our lives, if we don't have those difficulties, they don't push us. So we need those things, actually. So if we look at those difficulties in our service as blessings, because those are going to actually stimulate growth within us. Because without stress, there isn't growth. It's just, even Tulsi, with Tulsi care, I maintained Tulsi for so many years. I've cared for Tulsi, and I can tell you that a little bit of wind with Tulsi is a good thing. because it makes her stronger. When she's in a completely still room, and I think the conditions are perfect, she doesn't do as well. She needs a little bit of stress on her to make her stronger and grow more tall and thicker. So we when we're having difficulties in our devotional lives, it's important that we look at that as a blessing, because if we really see it as an opportunity for growth, and we see it also as the fact that we're still in these material bodies, that none of these three sufferings are going to go away just because we're doing some nice service, those aren't going to go away. But so it's how we handle them. And that's the key. It's all about how we handle the difficulties in our life. If we handle them with gratitude, and we also handle them as an opportunity for growth, then we're not going to see them as such difficulties going forward. We're going to see them as springboards for us. So that's my take on it.
Thank you. So the difficulties are to teach us lessons, and we learn and we mature from it. And so it's actually better that it comes. And if it is not there at all, then we will think that we are in this fantasy world and nothing ever happens. But that's not the nature of the material world. It's not like that. So, okay, thank you very much for explaining that. It's very, very, very wonderful. Thank you again.
Thank you. Quiet morning.
Meet yourself if you want to join in the conversation. Hare Krishna.
Quiet morning today. Everyone's getting ready for the weekend. It's cold out. Everyone's bundled up and keeping warm. So
it reminded us of things that happen, more to goodness, more to passion, and then more to ignorance. In our activities, as it's explained, actually, whether we're devotee or even non-devotee, these modes play into everything that we do. But the devotees are also said, we're told that we should even transcend goodness to the transcendental mode, to go beyond that to the transcendental mode. So sometimes we say, well, how do I know I'm in the transcendental? How do I know I'm in the transcendental mode when I'm acting with the material energy? Any points on that or advice on that? What is?
I think it's said that achieving the transcendental mode is very difficult. So I think it might be flickering for most people because the modes are so strong. So we'll know we're in the transcendental mode, but we're not asking whether we're in the transcendental mode, I guess. That ego and self-reflection, I think, is an indication. But I think because this is, again, the trappings of the mode of goodness, right? That each of the modes has trappings, and the trapping of the mode of goodness is like, hey, look at me, I'm in the mode of goodness. I'm doing all these great things. And so I think that when we're truly transcendent to all of these things, we won't be reflecting on these things so much. We're going to just be only thinking about the Lord and not about our own minds. So, and we may have flickerings of that. And that's the thing to remember, is that we all get the opportunity to see hints of these things in our service, in our lives in general. Krishna gives us little tastes of things. But to develop that full ruchi, like that deep, deep taste, we have to be really, really deep in our devotional service to get that lasting taste. And that takes a bit. And, it's just, I say it again, even Krishna says, like, it's not easy to come by. Even of the 1,000, 10,000 people that come to me, a million people, only one truly knows me. And so this is, again, the rareness of this person. It's not to discourage us. These things are not to discourage us at all. It's to provide some context around it all, to remind us that we just have to keep working on our own internal difficulties and our own internal path forward, and not worry so much about trying to be perfect.
So, okay, Shane left a message. Yeah.
Thank you, Shane.
Saying back to Shane, this is a nice, wonderful class. This is really an appreciation of it. So the transcendental part then, I guess, would be, oh, Nanya, okay, I'll call you in a moment. Just wanted to summarize what, or at least share my understanding of it. So then when we're doing devotional service, then that's the transcendental mode, then the hearing, the chanting, serving, those things.
But it's the
Yeah,
purity
okay.
of it. The purity of it
Yeah.
brings us to the transcendental state. And like I said, if we're in a transcendental state, we're only thinking about Krishna. We're not thinking about anything else.
Yeah. Ananya Mataji, please unmute yourself. Hare Krishna. Oh, you already unmuted yourself. Please go ahead.
Yeah, beautiful class, Mataji. Please, Hare Krishna. Please accept my
Hare
humble
Krishna.
obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. A beautiful
Good.
class. The best thing, the best takeaway I could get from this class was like you said, the breadcrumb thing. The mind is so instantaneous, and it's like you just blow up sometimes. Like you just have a small evidence of truth, and your mind revolves around it, thinking that that's the big thing. Like what's happening in your life. The other thing what I liked was the mind goes through three modes of nature. Like early morning, you chant, it goes. I mean, you are in the mode of goodness, but as the day progresses, again, your mind goes into like the modes of
Passion.
passion and ignorance. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So surrendering your mind, yeah, I think that's the most important thing. What I liked about your class. Sometimes we don't see the impact of what's happening to us. We see that the difficulties that we go through is very big, but Krishna must have made it small, like which we don't realize. We don't see the big picture. So that's something I really like the way you put it. Thank you very much, Mataji. I actually don't have any questions, but just wanted to share some takeaways from this class. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you for those reflections. I appreciate that. And yeah, it's the mind does go through these things during the day. So it is important to try and just bring our focus back. So yeah, dear Krishna Prabhu.
Please unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept.
Thank you for the wonderful, wonderful class. I was thinking about the points, and you really stressed on a very important thing, that how we should be thinking about our devotional service, our sadhana in a progressive way. So, question came to my mind. Just like, often we think spirituality is something internal, and we should do whatever we can. That kind of thought comes. But if we are really sincere and make it as a priority in our life, then should we plan it just like we plan our career, like setting some goals in for example, if I'm serious about my career, my profession, I will probably set some goals with sitting with my manager and making sure I'm advancing and it is doable, and all those kind of interaction happens with my seniors or manager. Should we follow the same process, or is it really something internal? That dilemma sometimes comes. Or I hope you're getting my question. If
No, I do.
sure.
It's a great question, actually. Yeah, thank you. The Sambandha Abhidaya Prayojana, that's what came to mind. So we have the process, we have the goal, the connect, then the relationship, the process, and the goal. So even in this process of Krishna consciousness, we're talking about goals, right? The ultimate goal is to achieve a relationship with Krishna. So how do we get to that goal? There is a process. So setting out steps, talking to your spiritual master is a really great way to do that. So spiritual master who knows you well can guide you through that process, or a close spiritual friend, a devotee that might be more senior to you that can help you do some spiritual goal setting. Because of course, if we don't have the roadmap to get to the goal, we're going to be wandering around. Prabhupada's program gives us all of the steps, but maybe we need to set some goals for us to achieve those different steps in a more thoughtful way. Maybe we want to improve our sadhana, or improve our chanting. So maybe we sit down for 20. Hey, we're coming to the end of the year here. Next time I'll talk to you will be in 2025. So maybe we do some goal setting for the year and say, okay, well, what do I want to focus on? I want to focus on really improving my chanting, but I really want to read more. That's one of my personal goals I'll share with you. So I would like to read more than I do. So So the goal comes with, okay, I'm going to look at my schedule, I'm going to look at my work schedule and my exercise schedule and, all these things, and I'm going to carve out, 20 minutes a day, let's say, so that I can make sure I get daily reading in. And so we can set those goals. And I think writing them down and being present with those goals is the great way to do that. So if we think of SMART goals, we want to make them executable. We want to make them easy, easy, like bite-sized. We don't want to be doing these lofty goals that we can't achieve. So I think goal setting in spiritual life is perfectly appropriate because it helps the mind progress. And spiritual life it is our ultimate focus, but we do have material activities we have to do because we are here. And I was saying this to someone recently, we're in the middle planets here. We're like wedged in between the hellish planets and the heavenly planets. We're right stuck in the middle. So we get qualities of both, right? But, I was saying one of the qualities of like the hellish planets is that we have to work every day in jobs that we may not love, that are might feel like they're taking us away from Krishna consciousness and from our spiritual activities. So we can create those goals in the same way that we would create a career goal to say, I want to do these 2 things this year or this month, and I'm going to do these activities to make sure I reach that goal. And absolutely, that is going to internalize it, because by reading that goal every day or making a step toward that goal every day is going to bring it deeper into our own hearts too. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, Mother. Very, very nice. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna,
very
good
much.
question. Thank
you.
you.
Yeah. So short-term goals then. Short-term goals.
Starting with the shorter goals, at least so we can see some small successes in our spiritual life that can encourage us. We need to be encouraged too. If we feel like we're just making these lofty goals, if I keep wanting to be a pure devotee and do pure devotional service, and that's all I keep thinking about is becoming a pure devotee, I'm just going to be like, oh, I'm such a failure, So if I think about smaller things that are more achievable, I'm going to feel those little successes, and it's going to keep me enthused. We have to keep ourselves enthused on the process, or we're just going to maybe get depressed and drop out, and we don't want to do that. So we have to keep ourselves enthused by making little goals that we can achieve.
Thank you very much. Wonderful advice. Wonderful, wonderful advice. Any other points, questions? Or more, whatever, your realizations, the words you want to share?
It was a great discussion this morning. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. If not, then we are on top of the hour now. 9 o'clock, just past 9. Thank you very much, Vrindavanesvari, for coming in to give such a wonderful class.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Food for thoughts, especially about the 3 modes and how to deal with them, and the realization of the suffering condition in this world, and how actually mentally to go about things that we do on a daily basis so that we can actually grow spiritually and in the end go back to Godhead. Thank you very much. And thank you, devotees, for coming on also.
This class big, very well populated today. Well attended.
Yeah. So we went up to 19 actually at some point.
Yeah.
So that's quite a few number of people that came on. That's wonderful. All right, so dear devotees, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend coming on, and those who are close, living around Harrisburg, we'll see you in the temple on Sunday. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo
Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Glory to Prabhupada.